guys should have had a stencil done, and if you didn't, that needs to be your first step after the demonstration is to get that done because you're going to need it for this step. So you're going to be rolling out a slab, and a slab is a flat piece of clay. We are using a rolling pin, and then we're going to be using our stencil to actually cut out the components to our project. So we're going to have our first layer. For me, that is the background of the book, this big piece, and then my second layer is this little bookmark. So first thing is, you want to be standing for this. When we roll, we really need some strength behind us. And to do that, you want to be standing, and instead of your feet directly next to each other, you want one to be a little further back than the other so you can really brace yourself and use your core. A lot of things that you're doing in art really do have like a physical thing with it, like about how to use materials and stuff, and like how do you use your arm to bend to like make a curve, and like lots of things. So one of the tricks for rolling out clay, rolling pin, and make sure your stance is a little more balanced and strong. When you get your piece off of this, you're going to notice that this is very compressed. There are not air bubbles. It's been cleaned and processed through a mill, and it's really nice. You want to try to roll your piece of clay correctly the first time because you're never going to have it as nice and compacted as it is now, right off the block. So if you do mess up, it's forgiving in that you can ball it back up and re-roll it, but you're going to have some air pockets, which we're trying to avoid. So I suggest really paying attention and doing this correctly the first time so you can get a slab without having to do lots of extra work. So been put through a mill. All those clay particles are really, really tightly packed together, meaning it's super solid. Okay? There's not little air pockets. There's not debris and stuff in here because we know that clay comes from the ground. It's got to be cleaned. It's nice and compact. We want to roll this now to pretty close to the shape and size of your wood board that you'll be getting. You do not roll and cut on your plastic board. That's only where we store clay. You roll and cut on a wood board. If you have ever made cutout cookies, what do you put on the surface so it does not stick to the counter? Flour. The clay dust on this board is essentially acting like flour. It's going to help the moisture from this not get it stuck to here. You're also going to notice that when I set it down, you're going to be able to see these areas where that wood is absorbing some of that. That's not a bad thing. It means it's drying it out a little bit, so it's not going to stick as easily as if it would on a table. This is not absorbent. So it would stick to this easier than it would stick to this. So think of this as your floured surface, and it's okay that we scratch it up. So you have this in the middle. My stance is proper where I'm balanced, standing. You're going to start on the clay, end on the clay. Don't roll off like this because you're going to get really thin edges that you can't use. You just wasted a chunk of your clay, and you'll have to ball it up and re-roll it. So you want to really start on the clay, end on the clay nicely. Start, end. You can hold it here, you can hold it here. Whatever feels comfortable, start, end. After every couple rolls, you want to make sure you're flipping or moving it. Why do you think we need to move it? I heard both things. What were you going to say? So what? So it would stay as long as I'm not taking forever. Yeah. No, that's great. That's a good feedback. So we want to flip it because, well, if I left it in the same spot and I just told you that this wood is absorbent, it would take the moisture out and harden it out a lot faster. Okay, so that's why flipping is good. It's good because I'm going to be able to make the shape better. So instead of rolling in the same direction where it turns into a long like stripe, I don't need that. I want a rectangle. So I need to rotate it, but I flip it because I don't want it to stick to the board. So you want to make sure after every couple rolls, you assess the shape of it and that you're flipping so it does not stick. Because there's nothing worse than making the most beautiful, perfect slab, and you go to try to peel it off, and it's stuck. So a couple rolls, keep flipping. So I am getting there here, and I'm getting closer. I can tell it's a lot thicker than it should be, but I also, my first degree, I went to art school for ceramic sculpture, and over the years, I can feel that. I'm like 3 times your age. I can tell, but if you are new to clay, it's going to be tricky to guess just by picking it up. So I have a method for you, so you know how that you can do this. Now I want to put this way, and I'm going to roll it up this direction because I want it to be a little wider this way. So I'm morphing the shape now a little bit. So right about now, because I'm getting close, I want to know the thickness. There's a cup on my desk of these tools. They're different than our cutting tool. Our cutting tool is called a needle tool. It's only got one metal side and it's pokey. This tool has 2 metal sides, and you'll see that one of them has a Sharpie line. That is the absolute maximum thickness your background piece should be. So that is not even the best thickness. It just absolutely cannot be thicker than that. So I'm going to stick it in the center like this. I'm going to look down and I'm going to pinch. And actually, that's perfect. So I was about to right here. That's where it goes up and then gets straight. It was pretty much right here at that mark. That's a good thickness. We're not working with such a huge project that we need it to be thicker than that. So I've just tested it, and that hole will smooth out. I do notice that these very edges here are thicker than the center, so I'm going to do this, check it out. That's a little bit better. And then I would do that side when I'm ready to use it. So now I've checked my thickness. It's pretty good. Maybe it could go a tiny bit thinner if I really wanted to, but I don't think I need to. I take my stencil. Just like as if you're making a cutout cookie, you want to try to get as many things cut out of this one big rolled out piece as possible before you ball it up and roll it again. So instead of putting things dead center like this, if you can, you want to set them more to the side so you have more room. I only have to cut out my book and my little bookmark. I have plenty of room. First way to do the cutting is tracing first. If you want to trace first, which I do because I like it, it's easier for me because I make a mess if I don't trace first. I hold this needle tool lightly, not the measuring tool, the one with just one side. Hold it lightly loose in my hand. I'm not trying to cut right now. I'm just literally grazing the surface. I'm letting this drag up against the edge of my stencil, so I'm very accurate. And I am going to trace. Okay. I'm going to leave one side not traced so you can see what you would do. All right, so tracing, tracing, tracing. Now, when I put my stencil up, I don't want to go right to the edge. That's why I have that little space here. And what do I do when there's something hanging off? I'll show you. So I traced here, I traced here. Instead, I'm going to poke holes where the line should continue. So when I take it off, I have a dotted line, and I would know to cut on my dotted line. If I wanted to cut right up against mine, because maybe I have something super, super simple, I can. You're going to hold this straight up and down. This circle should be facing the sky all the time. If it's not, you're going to end up with angled edges like this, which is not what we're going for this project. It's not a wrong technique, it's just not what we are doing. So straight up all the time, not tilting either way. It needs to drag on the wood, and it needs to be pointed straight to the ceiling. But here is why I don't love this technique. This, no matter how hard I try, is going to move a little bit. It didn't make it too uneven here, but earlier when I was demonstrating it, it like snuck underneath the paper and it made a weird weird thing. So that's why I prefer to take it off after I trace it, straight up and down, cutting like this after I trace. When you get to a corner, you want to stop, take this out, wipe all that little stuff off, start again. If you keep going and you are rounding your corners, they're no longer a corner and they're not going to look as neat. So when you get to a corner or an inner thing here, take it out, start again. Start again. If you have something like this, I could easily just hold a ruler up here and help me get those straight lines I'm looking for. if that's helpful for you. If you have any shape that had little circles, like a game controller or something like that, instead of using your stencil, you're welcome to just use one of the green tracers from the drawer. Okay. All right, so I just cut out my first background piece here. My tray needs of 2 of those dry towels covering the bottom, right here, just like this. Then I'm going to carefully, because I don't want to mess up this, carefully supporting with my hands, moving this layer 1 to my tray. And actually, mine was a little big. You see how it's going up the sides? That tells me I need to get one of those rectangle trays. It looks like they're all gone, so I have more in the back. So I am going to trade this out for a rectangle tray after the demo. So that's there. I cover it with 1 dry paper towel. So 2 underneath, 1 on top. Now it's time for my bookmark, my second layer things. You don't want your second layer to be as thick as your background layer. It's going to be visually not great. It's going to look too heavy visually. It's going to be too heavy as far as supporting the structure too. Your background needs to be the one that's a little thicker. I don't need all this little stuff here, so I'm going to ball this up. But don't just ball up your scraps if you can use them. You're just making more work for yourself. You want to try to use as much of this as possible before having to ball up your scraps. So if this is the same thickness as my background, what should I do to it before I go on to my
Roll it.
Roll it a little bit. So I don't need to roll it a ton. I'm just going to roll it a few times, making sure I flip. I don't want it paper thin. I just don't want it awkwardly like thick here, right? So that looks good for my what's I'm gonna call it? Bookmark. Okay. 2 ways to do the next thing. Way number 1 is to actually just use your scissors and cut out your second layer pieces now. So if I wanted to do it this way, I would cut out my bookmark from here. I'm done with the background shape. I'm still going to save it just in case though in my folder. So now I have this, which is my bookmark. I would set it on here. I would cut it out, and then I would have all my pieces. But some of you have a lot of things, or maybe don't feel like this is the best method for you. So if this is not the best method for you, is cutting it out of the paper to make a new stencil, I'll show you another way. What you can do is, what I did on my leaf here, I didn't want to cut this out for whatever reason. So what I did is I put it down, I poke holes through, but just going into the top layer of clay. You don't need to go all the way through. It's neater if you just do the very top. Poke, poke, poke. I poked all the way around. When I take it off, I have a dotted line that I can cut on, and then I will get my shape. So I'll let you decide which method works better for what you're doing. Okay? So now I have this piece. You can't put wet clay on wet clay when you don't want them to stick, which we don't want them to stick together right now. So I have my bookmark on top of that piece separating the layers. Then I'm going to take a couple more dry paper towels, and I have a spray bottle of water. You're welcome to just run these right underneath the sink if you would like, but I find it easier to just layer them and then spritz them a little bit. And now I will have moisture left in here so it does not dry up before next time. Then you're going to take your bag, name side up, set this on the table like this. You are going to slide this into the back corner. Okay? If you don't need any more of your clay, you're going to ball it up and I'll show you where to put it. If you needed this for next time and you didn't get a chance to use it, but you're like, I don't want to re-roll a slab, I just need a little piece still, put this in there and layer it with dry towels too. Okay? Save it for when you come in on a study hall if you need to. Right? So then this gets folded underneath here. This side gets folded under here. And then it's going to go to your class cart. You can fit 4 on a cart, but you can't put them in like this way. You need to turn them sideways. The first person puts it in the back, and then the back, and then the front, and then the front. Next shelf down, back, back, front, front, and we're working our way down. when you are in on a study hall, please make sure that you are not messing up people's bags, because if you accidentally open them, they're going to dry out, which would not be fair to that person. Okay.